Ladies and gentlemen, this morning, yesterday and today, we're honored to have with us the president of the American Farm Bureau. Zippy Duvall was elected as president of the American Farm Bureau in January of 2016. So he's completing his second year of his first two-year term as president of the American Farm Bureau. And one of President Duvall's goals has been to travel around the country to learn about agriculture. He's familiar. He was president. He grew up in Georgia. He was president of the Georgia Farm Bureau. He's familiar with southern, southeastern agriculture, but he spent quite a bit of time traveling around the country, looking at other agriculture and Farm Bureau. And he's got some great stories to tell, and it's been a learning experience for him. And one of the things that he wanted to do was to visit every state. Well, I didn't push North Carolina because I knew he knew about North Carolina. He knew about some of our southern, southeastern states, but I wasn't going to let his first term enter without getting him to North Carolina. And so we're honored to have with us today Zippy Duvall, the president of the American Farm Bureau. As I said, he was a former president of the Georgia Farm Bureau. Zippy Duvall, like me and many of us that came through our Young Farmer program, we may not know a lot, but we know this organization. We know what it stands for. Zippy Duvall grew up in the Georgia Young Farmer program. He served as chairman on the state Life and R committee there. He served as state chairman. He served on the American Farm Bureau's Young Farmer and Rancher Committee. And in 1987, Zippy was named chairman, elected chairman by that committee of the American Farm Bureau's Young Farmer and Rancher Committee. And at a very young age, as a young farmer, by virtue of that, like we do here, Zippy served 1 year on the board of the American Farm Bureau prior to going back to Georgia. For a young man, 20, 25 years old, that's pretty heady. It's pretty rarefied air, but Zippy did it and did a good job. Zippy Duvall is a farmer, third generation farmer. He and his wife, Bonnie, have a farming operation. They still have a broiler contract. He raises hay and cattle. They live outside of Greshamville, Georgia. Bonnie and Zippy have been married. He's a family man. They've been married 35 years. They've got 4 children and 5 grandchildren. It's an honor, President Duvall, to have you in North Carolina today. And ladies and gentlemen, you're going to enjoy hearing remarks from our president of the American Farm Bureau, President Zippy Duvall. Let's give him a warm North Carolina welcome.
Well, good morning to you, and I'm really proud to be in this great state of North Carolina, and I want to say thank you. Thank you for all that you do and what you're going to do today. What you're doing today starts a process that creates the roadmap for us to do our work in Washington. And if any of you are sitting there thinking, well, I should be home doing something, put it out of your mind, because there's nothing else more important that you can do to shape the future of agriculture than to be here today in this really important process. No other organization has one as good as we do to develop the policies that leads us in the next year. So thank you personally for doing that. Those of you in the room that are volunteers, that are county Farm Bureau members, or serve on a county board, or serve on a county committee, thank you. The strength and power of this organization lies within your counties, in people and faces like I'm standing here looking at. It's not myself, it's not Larry, it's not our staff. It's you that carry this organization, and you're the one that completes the Farm Bureau circle when you come to town, so thank you when you come to town. You know, I gotta say thank you also for Steve, because Steve and I have become friends here in the last several months and did get to visit with the president. We actually didn't get to choose the farmers that got to go to the White House. The White House chose them, and that's the first time Steve and I really had the opportunity to visit and get to know each other. Your National Farm Bureau provided a place for all of us that was going to meet with the president the night before, kind of an organizational meeting, got to know each other. We was a lot more comfortable going in there together, made the meeting more productive, and your national organization provided that leadership for that, and we was proud to be able to do that. And then, of course, Mr. Wooten, Larry, does an outstanding job, and I so much respect his counsel. And the reason, and that's exactly the reason I've asked Larry to continue to serve as chairman of our finance committee at the American level, does an outstanding job. You should be proud of these two leaders, and I'd like to hear you give them a round of applause. Larry was telling you that I'm on a mission to travel to 50 states, and I'm going to get it done before the end of the year. I got everybody on the schedule, and I'm proud to be here, and I'm going to come back when he can ride me out in the countryside and see some of you on your farm. But it's either in a meeting like this or I go in a tour. This is the 44th state I've been into. Everybody else is on the schedule except for West Virginia, and I got to corner Charlie up to get an appointment with him. And I'm going to one of these county meetings if I have to. I'm going to make West Virginia. This is a goal. I'm going to do it or bust. So we're going to do it. But it's not just to travel. Because if those of you who's traveled a little bit, after in a hotel room or an airport a little bit, it's not the most glorious thing to do. I'm on a mission because I realized really quick that I might have spent 30 years dairying and now 31 years growing chickens for Pilgrim Pride. I might have spent all my life in agriculture, but I still didn't know American agriculture. And the only way to know it is to travel the country, look the men and women in the eyes, and hear their stories. And they become reality when you hear their stories on their place. I tell a story about you can bring one of you to town, put your tie on you, ask you to go ahead and tell your story. It's one thing. But we can take that congressman or senator or his staff out to your house, and when you're in your boots standing on the property that you've sweat blood over trying to pay for, and that story becomes real all of a sudden. And that's what I wanted to experience, and I have become a very informed national president that I can actually stand up and talk about the issues whatever state that person is from. I can talk about that issue and bring reality to it and have some wonderful stories to tell those stories. But today I want to talk about, today is our time. It's time to get it done. And let me tell you, I was in dairy business. I always synchronized my heifers come in 1 month because I know what a pain that is. We have bred the will out of a Holstein to do anything but milk. Anything. So when they lay down and have a calf, they grunt about twice, look over their shoulder and see who's coming to help them. Well, I knew that. So I'd get them all to come in 1 month. I had one lot, had several yard lights in it, and I just pulled my pickup out in the middle of that lot, set my clock, and I'd wake up every 2 hours and check on them because I had way too much invested in them to lose them. And you'll lose them suckers. And so I'd sit there and watch them that 1 hour. You can see a little bit coming out back, and then the next hour she done got up and laid down 4 or 5 times, and then you might see a foot or two. But after a few years of doing that, I always knew when it was time to help. She didn't. She was wanting it right off the bat. But I knew about what time it was to help. That's the way I feel about the situation we're in now today in Washington and on national policy. And let me tell you why. 2 things I'll talk about. There's many things I can talk about. Well, really 3. Many things I can talk about. There's 3 I want to touch on. One is we have the relationships and the people in the right place at the right time. And I'm going to spend most of mine talking about that. We have had, the other one is Farm Bureau has spent 18 months now reviewing the 2014 Farm Bill, made up of state Farm Bureau employees who have the pulse of our grass leaders and our farmers, talking about what's wrong with the Farm Bill, where we need to go with in the future. They delivered, after 18 months of deliberation, a set of recommendations to the board, who approved it last week. We sent it to the Hill, and right behind the email we sent to the Hill, I sent 4 of your staff members that work at American Farm Bureau right behind it. Dale Moore, Mary Kay Thatcher, and John Newton, 3 of them. And I let them follow that email to describe to the chairman of the 2 committees and the minority leaders what we think this next Farm Bill should look like. No other organization is this far ahead in the game. We're very prepared. The board set us in a flexible position to where we can take your policy and the flexibility the board's given us and try to make a difference in this next Farm Bill. And the two chairmen congratulated our board on that effort. Now, it has been a great process and a learning one, and we think we're really prepared to have this conversation, and we think we're going to have it this fall. Of course, I've been disappointed before by Congress, But I hope that we can make that happen this fall so that you'll have some certainty in your life when we go into 2018. And we're going to work hard to try to make that happen. The other one I want to spend more time on is the relationships, because it really talks to, it is really our time, and it's time to make it happen. And I'll start off with Sonny Perdue. Sonny Perdue come from Georgia, and of course I'm proud of Governor Sonny Perdue, who is now Secretary today. But those of you that don't know him, he was educated as a veterinarian. I have a son that's a veterinarian. He's a scientist. Sonny Perdue is a scientist. He depends on sound science and data to make his decisions in developing policy. What do we talk about? Don't give us this passionate plea to create a policy. Use sound science and data to do it. This man will do that. This man has spent a lifetime in agriculture. He's only the 4th secretary to ever serve that's been an actual farmer in his adult life. I remember Sonny Perdue telling me early on, he remembered when he was farming, he had soybeans about this high in his field. They were burning up. He took his 4 little children, went out in the field, and they got on their hands and knees and prayed to God to send a rain on that crop. He's a Christian. He teaches Sunday school. He's a good man. He owns and sells, he owns businesses that buys and sells grain domestically, internationally. So he understands trade. I've been on trade mission with him when he was governor. He was governor of our state for 8 years. We were in a very difficult time, ran a tight budget and a tight ship. He did not destroy programs, but he cut those programs to the point where he could keep them alive to where he could backfill them when things got better. I think this man has the credentials to be the best secretary, not because of him being from Georgia, but because of his credentials and his desire to help farmers and ranchers across this country. He's got the credentials to be the best secretary that we have ever had. And let me tell you, the first few moves that he made was so important. One thing that's important to you, and it is across this country, it is the #1 issue on farmers' mind from Florida to Washington and from Maine to California, and it's labor. Everywhere I go, it's the first issue we talk about. Secretary Perdue, in his first week, called me and he says, Zippy, you know, in Georgia, we don't hire our neighbor's help without calling him first. And I said, so you're going to hire some of my American Farm Bureau people? He said, yes. First one he got, he tried to get 3. I kept 2 of them. He got 1. But he got a good one. Christy Boswell. Most of you know Christy. She was our lobbyist that handled immigration reform and farm labor. And he picked her because she is one of the most sought after people in Washington when it comes to immigration and farm labor. And farm labor is so important, this secretary, he hired her and put her as an assistant to him. That ought to speak volumes to you. It was one of the first moves he made. That ought to speak volumes to you. The second one, which is just as it's important to us in long term, but not the daily life, but trade. Because daily life, we're looking to see who's going to help us today. We know that to keep our prices where they need to be, we got to have trade. So he automatically, because the last secretary, which I won't throw on because I think he was a good secretary too, but the last secretary had the authority through the 2014 Farm Bill to create a position on trade. And he didn't do it. And as soon as he took Christie from us, he decided he was going to reorganize the USDA and create that trade undersecretary. And they're in the process of filling that position right now. And I think Mr. Bill Northey from Iowa is the leading candidate for that. So immigration reform and farm labor, trade, 2 of the biggest issues we face. He took head on, and he's going to do it. He's also traveling the country like I did because he wants to meet the people. This is a man that told me on the phone, because I asked him, I said, Sonny, why in the world do you want to do this? Because I knew him and his wife were at home. His wife loved it. They loved their grandchildren, had a beautiful place. He'd been governor for 8 years. Why you want to do this? He says, you know, you are like me. When you're called to serve, you go serve. And he says, I want to make a difference in the farmers and ranchers' life across this country. This is a great man. He'll do a good job, and we need to stand behind him and help him. And now's the time to do that. Now's the time to do that. Second thing is, and I need to thank you for Ray Starling. Ray Starling, thank you, and thank you. He come to Washington, very well trained, understands agriculture, He knows Farm Bureau. One of the first things he told me he did, he came to see me and he said, you know, my second day in office, I said, no way I can advise the President of the United States on agriculture matters without looking at the website of the largest general farm organization in the country, and that's ours. He said, I went on the web in the White House and I couldn't find your website. He said, lo and behold, the previous administration had blocked our website from the White House. Well, it's not blocked anymore because Ray Starling said he had to go all the way to the Department of Defense to get our website unblocked. Now, I don't know whether they had us categorized as a terrorist group or what, but they didn't want to hear from us. Now is the time. Ray's there, Secretary Perdue's there, and then we got to talk about what's happening at EPA. Mr. Pruitt comes from Oklahoma. He understands agriculture. He understands Farm Bureau. He keeps calling our organization saying, I got this guy that works down in below me. I want to know what kind of guy you think he is, because he knows he's got bureaucrats working there that's fighting against him. He's tapping our resources at American Farm Bureau every day, wanting to know what we think about this, how we need to do this. We've had a personal hand in on helping shape and mold how we dismantle waters of the U.S., which your president, not me, but your president was in the room when the president signed the executive order to dismantle the waters of the U.S. And thank you for the Ditch the Rue campaign and the involvement that you and your counties was in. There's never been a campaign that was so heartfelt and worked hard at across America, in rural America, than it was in American Farm Bureau, and your state and county farm bureaus led the charge in doing that, so thank you for doing that. But EPA is in good hands. Matter of fact, we had Mr. Pruitt come to a meeting, 600 Farm Bureau members there. We just signed the executive order to dismantle the waters of the U.S. He walks into the room with those 600 Farm Bureau members, and lo and behold, the EPA administrator got a standing ovation. Now, when have you ever thought that might happen? This man speaks our language. He's got a president that hired him that speaks our language. In regulatory reform, it is our time to make it happen. It's our time to make it happen. And then if I'm in a western state, I talk about Mr. Zinke in Department of Interior. He talks that same way. We had all three of those gentlemen either on the phone or in the building. Secretary Perdue called into our Council of Presidents. But all three of them, when they were talking about doing their jobs, I was so impressed, because here you had high officials appointed to positions in the federal government that says, I'm working with Sonny Perdue, or I'm working with Secretary Zinke, and I'm working with Administrator Pruitt to get these things done. I have never heard that before. They're always top of their ladder, and it's their department that's important, and the heck with the rest of them. Mr. Vilsack was for rural America, but he couldn't get the attention of EPA for nothing. And he says, and the EPA director told me, he says, well, they're a sister organization, but they can do their thing, and we're going to do our thing. I don't hear that anymore. It's our time. It is time to get it done. So let me tell you what I think it's going to take to get it done. We have the relationships. We're prepared for the Farm Bill. We have the people in the right place. What it's going to take to get it done is engagement. Your staff at American Farm Bureau is engaged every day, on and off the Hill, at embassies, at USDA. You never, hardly ever catch them sitting in their office, because they're somewhere on the Hill working hard for you each and every day. Your group here at North Carolina Farm Bureau working hard for you every day. But we're just part of that Farm Bureau circle. The most important part of that circle is when you come to town, or when you make a phone call, or when you write an email. You know, we have a app and a website. It's engagement.org, fb.org, and you can go to our website and find it. You can sign up for it. You can read the materials on what's going on in Washington, what we're watching. You can see our talking points. And then, just like yesterday, we asked people to respond and take action on putting out a comment on the new rule that'll be on waters of the U.S. We want you to be involved. We want you to get that information. We want you to read it. We want you to, when we call you to action, we need you to come to action. Let me tell you why. And I've had congressmen tell me this. He said, when a bill comes on the floor, the environmental groups, Heritage, NRA, AARP. Said we just get flooded with emails and phone calls. He said, I know your people, and I want to stand behind them. He said, but they got to quit being so busy. They got to be part of the process. He said, we want to work for you, but we got to turn around and see you standing behind us, backing us up. And that's what engagement is. At this point in time, engagement is standing behind the people that want to support us. Is that right, Steve?
Absolutely.
We got to stand behind those people. Make Stoney Perdue, make Ray Starling, make your congressmen and senators know that they're doing the right thing for American agriculture, North Carolina agriculture. And we're there, but stand behind you. You got to show up at those town meetings. Sometimes you might think you need to have a bulletproof vest on, but let me tell you, the liberals, the environmentalists, the animal rights people, the people that are going to be there hammering on them. And if you're not there to stand behind them, how much hammering can they take? It is our time to make a difference. Now, I'll just share a story with you, and I'll close. But last week, or week before last, when we had our board meeting, Larry, I try to get up every morning and listen to David Jeremiah. How many of you listen to David Jeremiah? David Jeremiah is the best teaching preacher that I have ever listened to. And he had a whole week series on David and Goliath, and I've heard that story a million times. But when he tells it, it really comes to life. If you hadn't heard it, you need to go to his website and listen to it. And I'm going to read a scripture because I think it relates to what we're going through. In 1 Samuel 33, it says, And Saul said to David, everybody knows who David is. He's the little boy with slingshot and 5 rocks, took down the giant. You are not able to go against the Philistine to fight with him, for you are just a youth, and he is a man of war from his youth. You know, sometimes we look at Washington, D.C. as a giant, and they're powerful. It's the most powerful place on earth. And we look at them as a giant. But let me tell you, it's our time to be a David. We got the people in place. We got the slingshot in our hand. And those rocks represent those people. And it's our time to make a difference in the future of this industry, in our children, our grandchildren's lives, so that not just agriculture can thrive in the future and that we can feed all those additional people that's coming to this earth, but to make our communities sound and in better shape. It is our time. And if we turn away and if we don't stay engaged, we will miss the best opportunity in our life to make a difference. This president has pivoted this country in a new direction. You sent him there, he knows it. He told us that day we met with him. He talks our language, he wants to know what we think. He did less talking in that meeting than we did. He was on his elbows intently listening. He wants to know what it takes to make agriculture great. Steve Bannon called me right after they started moving into the White House. Steve Bannon calls me, your president. And he says, I understand you're the leader of the largest farm organization in the country. And I said, I am. And he asked me about secretaries of agriculture. I said, well, I know a lot of good men that could do that. He said, can you send me those names? And I said, yes, sir, I'll send you 10 names. And I solicited names from all our state presidents to send him 10 names. He said, who's at the top of that list? And I said, well, the one I know best is Sonny Perdue. He said, the second request I got for you, he says, I want you to send me policies that will help the American family farmer. He says, because this president wants to make sure that the American family farmer survives. Now, that was just days after they went into the White House. Never before have we ever had the people in place, the relationships we got. You can ask the people at the American Farm Bureau, they say we've never had this kind of opportunity with an administration and the cabinet members that we have today. It's our time. It's your opportunity to be engaged in a great process that we call of being a citizen of the greatest nation on earth, and that's American. And it's our time to make a difference. I know that this organization is full of Davids. full of them. We just got to get them to put the bucket down or get off the tractor like David did and leave his sheep herd or his cow herd or his chickens or his crop just for a minute or two and respond and engage. And I know that the Davids of this organization will make that happen. Thank you for the privilege to be able to serve you in this great industry in this great state. Thank you for the privilege of serving with these great men right here. And I want to say, I pray for farmers and ranchers across this country every day. And there's one verse that I try to live by every day, and it comes from Colossians 3:23. It says, whatever you do in life, and I paraphrase it, whatever you do in life, whether you're a farmer, a daddy, a husband or wife, a good friend, whatever you do in life, do it with all your heart, as though you was doing it for the Lord and not for man. God bless you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a farmer.